Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Hayden's Planning and Zoning meeting. Today is October 16th, 2023. Do we have any conflicts? I'm sorry, I called us to order. Let's get a roll call first.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Bemis.
Here.
Chair Davis.
I am present.
Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Howard. Here. Commissioner Prickett.
Here.
And Commissioner Taylor.
He's not here.
Okay. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is stands, one nation of God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to.
Are there any additions or corrections? Something like that.
I don't think so.
I don't.
Feel free to.
What?
Do you want your thing muted or do you want this on
What about my thing? I did.
for go-to meeting?
Is anybody online?
I don't know if anybody's out on GoTo yet. We have the applicant for the second public hearing that
Okay,
will be
so right now we're
on
good.
there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so am I not hearing any additions or corrections to the agenda?
correct.
All right, do we have any conflicts of interest for tonight's items?
No.
No. Nope. Nope. Okay, I will disclose that I have a potential conflict with the second hearing, which is item 3B. And so Mary will lead that public hearing procedure. Next item is the consent calendar, which is approval of September 18th, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting minutes. I believe that is everything, right? Is there any need for discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes for September 18th, 2023,
Okay, we have,
as presented.
very good. Do we have a second?
I second that.
All in favor indicate so. Aye.
Aye.
Any dissenters? All right, fair enough. Let's go into our first public hearing tonight, which is an action item, PZE-230107, which is Hayden Bible Church Conditional Use Permit Amendment.
Hey, Aiden, I pulled your PowerPoint. It's on the right-hand side. Yeah.
And just as a request, if we could silence our cell phones, that would be swell.
Okay. So we are presenting the Hayden Bible Church Conditional Use Permit Amendment, PZE 23-0107. For reference, the location is 290 East Miles Avenue, as seen in the picture in front of you. Here are a couple of images as seen from the road. This is looking directly onto the property. Things to note as looking onto this particular project is that to the right there is a one-way entrance into the property, and then in front of you is a one-way exit out of the property going either right or left. This is another image facing southwest from Miles Avenue to give you reference that there's kind of an open field next door and the project at large. So for background, 290 East Miles Avenue is where it's located. It is currently zoned today as single-family residential and is currently 3.66 acres. This has expanded recently, which the applicant will likely touch on. I believe it added about an acre recently through a boundary line adjustment process. There are existing conditions in place. There have been multiple revisions in the past, most prevalently SUPs, which are special use permits, which are still conditional use permits today. They have been in place to both allow for the Hayden Bible Church, and multiple revisions have occurred to expand the parking and site development. So the applicant in question is Sean Hoisington, and he is representing the church, but I believe JUB is representing on their behalf as well. Their proposal is to expand their parking and site improvements with the acquirement of their recent acre of land. and I will let JUB take it away. I believe Brad is going to be presenting on their behalf, if you'd like to come up here.
Okay, before Brad starts, the commission has anyone had any ex parte communication with the applicant or general public regarding this case?
No.
Hearing no? All right, applicant, fire away.
Again, good afternoon, good evening. Again, I'm Brad Marshall with JB Engineers, 7825 Meadowlark Way in Coeur d'Alene. Again, it's a pleasure to represent the Hayden Bible Church and the applicant, Pastor Sean Hoisington, who's with us tonight. Also with me is the applicant's civil engineer with JEB, Cole Henderson. He's a PE working on the parking lot improvements. We want to take a second and thank the commission for your time, for volunteering to the community and reading the staff report and the hearing tonight and making the decision. I also want to thank the staff for their help with the applications and the pre-application meetings and some of those questions that arise as we move through the process. Excellent job. I want to state off right the get-go that we agree with the staff report, recommended conditions of approval. We've also reviewed the letters from the fire district, the sheriff's department, and the building department, and agree with those conditions and comments as well. Pretty straightforward request. They did an excellent job in the staff report as well as this presentation tonight. Again, we're amending an existing special use permit with a conditional use permit, which is a new kind of provision in your code. The church is growing. Their attendance is doing very well. They've got their congregation, and they've got some parking needs that we're trying to accommodate. So through some acquisitions with some good neighbors, they've been able to acquire about an acre. And our goal is to develop that with additional parking spaces for their congregation. In the future, you may see a building permit expansion as well. That may also dictate an additional conditional use permit amendment. So, but for now, it's an additional 1 acre to the site and an additional 83 parking spaces, bringing it from 137 to 222 parking spaces.
Do you know how many seats are in the existing church right now?
I'll spin that question to Pastor Sean. 300.
So you could put 300 people in there as of today.
Yeah.
Good gravy. All right.
And per city code and per city standards, not only we're developing a parking lot, but again, we're developing landscaping, screening, buffering, and lighting as well, all to city standard. To be frank, we can't get a permit to build this thing until we meet the city standard, and that's appropriate. And just a reminder, the church does serve the citizens of your city, many of which are members, of course. This is the site plan. I want to draw your attention to the north arrow, which I guess on this drawing is the upper right-hand corner. So you're kind of looking at a little wonky. So this is the additional area right here that the church has acquired, an additional parking area, and then a future building expansion.
Where's Miles?
Up here.
Thank you.
So if you kind of look at the north arrow here,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, you can look up to the north there. So it's turned a little bit. This one's turned straight north, I guess you could say. So again, Miles is up here. Oh, excuse me, this way. This way. So additional parking area, landscape screening, trees, shrubs, fencing, and stormwater improvements as well. So again, we're required to contain and treat the stormwater that comes off the parking lot within the site. So we think we're a nice compatible use to the neighborhood, given the operating hours of the church and the use of the church and with that screening and so forth. Move through it.
It also looks like you're planning to add parking around onto the west side, so the person that's parking at the very far back near the road in this situation would be a lot closer
Exactly, yeah.
to the
And
building.
the church, again, is growing, attendance is doing well. So we've had admittedly a little bit of overflow parking on the miles, which is not appropriate. So this will accommodate that. Yeah, and we've got some parking spaces we're actually going to be, they're existing, that we're going to be kind of rebuilding. We've got some drainage issues, so we're going to tear out a little bit of asphalt and redo some of that as well. So. Like any conditional use permit that goes before the city or a county, you have to meet standards of approval. And there are 3 main standards of approval, and your staff has done an excellent job of addressing those in the staff report that you've likely reviewed. And we also address those in our application submittal. And I'll take 2 seconds and kind of run through this as well. Standard number 1 is that proposal in conformance with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance? So again, the underlying comprehensive plan future land use map designation is single-family neighborhood, and churches are very typical use in a single-family neighborhood. And the underlying, the zoning for the property is R1, and churches are allowed in the R1 with a conditional use permit.
Correct.
Pretty straightforward, very common. Standard number 2, the location, design, size are such that development will be adequately served by streets, police, fire protection, drainage, and refuse, water, sewer, and schools. Again, we're just off a publicly maintained street. We've got sheriff's protection via the city. We're in a fire district. We've got hydrants into the area. Drainage is addressed because we're required to develop a drainage plan and move that drainage into swales and treat that stormwater and so forth. And then we've got refuse, and water is provided by Avondale Water, and then sewer is provided by Hayden Area Water and Sewer District. So again, we're required to meet the city standards and the review standards, and through our application, we believe we've done that. Again, this is standard number 3, and this kind of a little more detail of the prior standard, but the design and planning include construction, operation, and maintenance of the site is compatible with the location, the setting, existing uses, and the character of the general area. Again, a reminder, there's a church there already today, and it's previously approved. We're just adding additional parking to it. So one would make the argument that it is a compatible use today, and the parking will just accommodate that additional growth. Again, we'll design to the city standards to make sure that this use is compatible with the neighborhood, particularly those landscape standards, those screening standards. So again, there's fencing, trees, and shrubs. And by the nature of churches and their operating hours, they tend to be a pretty compatible use to the neighborhood, if not complementary. And again, a reminder, we're going to be able to provide some of that parking that's been overflowing onto the site. So at the end of the day, we think it's a big improvement. Again, appreciate the assistance of city staff. And in your review of the conditional use permit application, and on behalf of the applicant, we respectfully request approval of the conditional use permit, and also stand for questions.
Any commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Don't have any questions. Thank you.
We're good, thanks.
Thank you so much.
So as Brad so graciously touched on, we do have 3 standards of approval that we use in our analysis for conditional use permits. The first one being the proposal is in accordance with the general objectives or any specific objective of the comprehensive plan and or zoning ordinance. As you can see here on the right side is our current zone map where it is zoned single-family residential today, and on the left side is our future land use map. Our comprehensive plan identifies this area as a potential for mixed residential, and you can see the piece that they had acquired to the left side just recently being shown on that property as well. We have here our goals. We'll go into a couple of goals that the staff reviewed and picked out for this application. Number 3, maintain an attractive and balanced mix of land uses, densities, housing types, ensuring the future character of the community and promoting greater choices of opportunity.
Hey, Aiden, I appreciate it. If it's just a read slide thing, we're good.
Wonderful.
Very
Commissioners, let me know when you read the slides, please.
No, I'm with you.
Okay. Many of these will go into ideas of transportation, community growth, et cetera. Feel free to look through the goals. We have about 5 goals and 5 policies as well. And if you guys are ready to move on, we can go to the next slide. Perfect.
Have we got enough time?
Yeah, good, I've read it.
All right.
I saw a lot of head nods. I apologize if I got ahead of
That's all
myself.
right.
You're good, you're good.
I just want to
And
be
a
thorough.
couple of policies as well that were identified by the staff pertaining to this project. Again, a lot of those policies are in accordance to sort of transportation, community growth, and the idea of a church being in a single-family residential zone. If everybody is good to go looking through those policies.
Thank you.
Hayden City Code 11-2-2 identifies the zoning definition of single-family residential as providing for a classic Hayden neighborhood, single-family homes on smaller lots, accessory dwelling units permitted, but two-family dwellings are not. The location, design, and site of the proposal, as Brad kind of went into depth upon this, we stole his site plan that he so graciously provided for us, and then identified the new area in that red rectangle down at the bottom. That is the area for future expansion. He touched on that in great detail, providing for more parking for the current site that is from the staff belief is needed for the site. And then also going into some potential expansions of the church as it is growing quite significantly.
And Aiden, a question or a clarification. In the case of a conditional use permit addendum, unlike say a zone map amendment where a developer can give us something and they don't necessarily have to stick to it. In this case, they have to stick to exactly what's being presented, yes?
I don't believe so, and I will
Not
let
necessarily?
Not necessarily. It's more in, this is a conceptual plan that shows that they're intending the use of this to be parking to help with the parking necessitated on the property. And for a part of a building addition in the future, but it's not specific to approve this specific site plan. So it's
All right.
not more about the use than about.
Right.
So
And I just wanted the commissioners to understand that. That's why I asked that question.
Hayden, for those folks that didn't read the staff review, why did the church have to have an amendment to the conditional use permit?
Yes, so I believe, if history serves correct, because there were quite a couple of amendments in past, the conditional use is set to run with the land for a certain specific amount of area. And so it only went for this section that was in existence today. When the boundary line adjustment with the neighboring property allowed for the expansion of that additional acre, it needed to be amended so that that area could be used as a church, as the conditional use permit restricted it to just the existing parcel.
Thank you.
Any further questions before moving on?
So it's the use that has to remain, not necessarily the concept as to where things would be.
Correct.
Conditional use.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is very much preliminary in design to give you kind of an idea of the parking that they are proposing, but could be subject to being tweaked and especially in review by staff should the permits go through.
Okay.
One more quick clarifier that was also in the staff review, but not really spelled out, is that the definition of single-family residential identifies houses. So how are churches meeting that definition?
They do not meet that definition. That is why there's a conditional use permit in place. Churches can be allowed in the single-family residential, but with the permit in place because it would increase traffic and congestion as one of the criteria for a church being in a single family area. But as you can imagine, a church is a good idea for a single family residential area for all the families in that area to sort of congregate.
And Aiden, I believe the only zone that we have currently that outright allows churches is commercial, correct?
I believe so. However, I would have to check our code
And
book.
that's why they have to have
Correct.
they have to ask.
Okay, keep going.
Okay.
You're doing great, Aiden.
Oh, thank you. Agency requirements, we had 3 agencies reach back out to us. I believe on the next slide, it will indicate that we reached out to 10 different agencies in the city of Hayden. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District had a couple of restrictions, fire turnarounds, 25-foot radius on all corners, and fire code requirements as identified by the state, and the parking areas will be subject to review. Avondale Irrigation and the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office sent that they did not have any comments at this time. It should be noted that I believe that Northern Lakes Fire Protection District was in approval of the conditional use permit. And then the design and planning of the site compatible with the location and general character. The statement, the church has grown. As Brad has indicated, a lot of the parking has sort of overfilled into Miles Avenue. And therefore, they have recognized that the need that the church needs to provide for additional parking to mitigate sort of that traffic and congestion. And therefore, the site will be reviewed in conformance with city codes, policies, and standards at time of future development. But we are in agreement that the parking does need to be mitigated in some way. And we found that staff was recommending approval for, no, apologies.
Staff doesn't recommend approval.
We do not. Not recommending approval. We found that they had met all the criteria that was subject to the city codes and standards. Excuse me.
Very good.
Okay. So as mentioned, notices were sent to 10 different agencies. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office responded with no comments. However, the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District did have a couple of comments as we had listed out. And we had not received any public comments. And so that is that. So for the staff recommended conditions of approval, the approval of the CUP is based upon the request of expanding a religious institution within the R1 zone. Remember that a religious institution, as Chair Davis identified, is allowed outright in commercial, however, needs the conditional use permit in single family. The approval will run with the land, hence why the addition for the amendment, expanding their use and the footprint of that use. And then any development of the project shall comply with city codes, policies, and standards in the future. A phase master site plan may be required depending upon how they decide to proceed with their development in the future. The applicant will comply with all agency requirements. As of today, there was only the requirements by the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District. The applicant shall also provide the last 3 years of water usage so that we can charge them accordingly for their water usage. And then we also have a large standard concerning the parking, as we have identified that no parking will be allowed on unpaved locations or areas not identified as parking locations. Thereby, the owner shall provide for the required parking through a joint parking agreement. If they are not able to provide for all the parking that they are required, then they will have to provide that parking in some other way. Typically, administratively, that is a cross-parking agreement. Sometimes they could identify other ways, hence a parking lot to mitigate some of that parking. And then access to the site shall be limited by the one-way entrance into the site, as I showed you earlier, and then the one-way exit onto Miles to help mitigate some of that traffic flow. And then, again, just sort of reiterating the 3 standards of approval, going into each one of those that we kind of talked about today. And then you have the Planning and Zoning Commission may either approve with conditions, or deny the conditional use permit request for expanding the religious institution in the R1 zone.
Real quick, Aiden, so for our new commissioners, sometimes we recommend to city council and sometimes we decide. This is a decider.
And with that, I open for any questions that the commission may have.
So I have a question actually for Fonda. Is there any statutes that would apply that we should be aware of, given that it's a religious institution here in the state?
It's the same as any of the other protected classes with regards to campus community.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Good?
I'm good.
I have a question for the church. Have you guys by chance happen to notify the neighborhood that this is like a safe gathering spot in case of any kind of emergency? So expanding the parking lot could be used.
So the time for that is, well,
Sorry.
we're gonna, before we close the hearing, yeah, you don't want to, we can't address the public. So we have to always address whoever's at the podium and they address us.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Otherwise it turns into melee, but it's all right.
But at the end of the public hearing portion,
Yep,
the applicant can rebut and you can have an
Okay.
opportunity to ask that question.
exactly, exactly.
As you can
Sorry.
tell, in Parks and Rec, we didn't quite have an audience.
Very good.
Make sure you rebut so he can ask these questions.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions for Aiden on this side?
No, thank you, Aiden.
Thanks, Aiden. Good job. All right, so,
Aiden, you're gonna wanna put up the standards of approval.
Thank you.
sure. All right, so anyone who wants to offer comments on the subject case, please submit a completed form located on the table by the entrance doors. Form must have your name, address, date, whether you want to testify in support of, opposed to, or are neutral. Anyone planning to speak must do so at the podium so your remarks can be heard in the recording system. All questions and comments will be directed to the commission, not the applicant. The applicant will have the opportunity to answer questions and offer rebuttal after all public testimony is completed. All speakers will need to state their name and address for the record before they begin speaking. I will call first those supporting the application, then those uncommitted, and finally those opposed to the application. Shauna, do we have any comments?
I have no public.
Is anyone,
These are for the other one.
Oh, sorry, okay.
does anyone in the audience wish to fill out a comment or offer testimony on this case? So for the record, no one has. Does anyone online want to offer a
I don't think
testimony?
we have anyone online.
We have no one online, just
If we-
being thorough.
Do we have?
It's all right.
Want me to look?
All right, so we're going to now offer the applicant, if they so desire, a chance to rebut any thing that has been commented on since they were last at the podium. They're not allowed to bring up anything new. So it's your option.
Again, for the record, Brad Marshall, JEB Engineers. Just a quick question by the commissioner. The church is a good neighbor. We're friends with our neighbors. So in addition, so there's a dialogue with the neighborhood about the operations of the church. And they've also acquired property from one of the neighbors to the expansion we're talking about today. Zooming in a little bit, the church is also a local polling place. So again, they're open to that. And they're open for those in need. So my point is, if there's an emergency, the church is there with open arms to help the neighbors. Kind of back to the application in a whole, we've submitted a very complete and detailed application. We meet the standards of approval. The staff report's favorable. The agency comments are favorable. There's been no public opposition. And with that, we respectfully request approval of the conditional use permit.
Okay, anybody have any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Okay, now the hearing is closed. No more questions or comments will be allowed from the public to the commissioners. Do you wish to proceed or schedule deliberations for another date?
Proceed.
Proceed. Okay, we have the standards of approval before us. In a nutshell, we've got a conditional use into an R1 area, and the condition either meets the standards of approval or it does not. Would you like to start, Mary?
Sure. As I look through the standards of approval, I believe that it satisfies all three of the standards of approval, and believe that this would be a favorable conditional use permit. I think that just addressing getting cars off miles is an important safety issue. And so I think that the church is acting responsibly in their plan and putting this forward to us, so I would approve it.
Thank you. Ben?
I wouldn't change anything Mary just said, so.
All right. And Brandon?
Me neither, and I like everything that I've seen so far. It seems as though they're following the standards of approval to a T. Got no quarrels.
Okay. Joel, anything to add?
I like that they're a good neighbor, and I really like that they're getting cars off of Miles, so I would approve.
Saving the best for last. Keith, what you got?
I think that the standards of approval are met. I think that it's common sense request. It's good for the neighborhood, good for the community, so.
Okay. I believe the applicant meets the standards of approval. Obviously, the only twist in it is that, again, this is an area of town that's meant to be single-family homes. They are asking to expand their current footprint with a use that requires a conditional use. But that is allowed, so I think do we have a motion? You want to make a motion?
I motion we approve.
So,
Sure, so.
do a little
It's
different.
so easy.
It's that easy.
Let him
I
learn.
make a motion to approve that.
I make a motion, we approve
PZE.
PZE -23-0107 Hayden Bible Church CUP memo to planning zone.
What about with the conditions of
With or
the,
without condition.
Without conditions.
We have conditions that were recommended by staff in your staff report. So is that a motion to approve with the conditions as
I'm not able
presented?
to access right now.
it's okay.
You're okay.
I think the answer is
Yes.
yes.
I'll
So-
second.
So just for clarity, before we second, we are voting on to approve this with agreeing with the conditions the city's put in?
Yes.
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 Okay, just for clarity.
Yeah.
All right. May we have a roll call vote? I got this.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Bemis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yep.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Pickett,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes. Motion passes.
Joel, good job.
That you
It's always so
They
nervy the
set
very
you
first
up.
time.
That's what I said. I set him up for failure.
Now, here's what they're not telling you. Everybody else got some cheat sheets where it literally says, in the case of PZE, so you need to grab yourself that cheat sheet. Everybody,
I don't know where that
everybody
is
goes through this.
Okay.
All right, our next item,
Wait 1 second.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you for recognizing the need for it.
all right, so while we adjust here, we're going to move on to action item 3B, which is PZE-23-0110, which is a PACE zone map amendment. And I will excuse myself.
Donna,
Please holler at me when
may I ask you
we're,
kind of a dumb question on that last one?
when we're done with this.
Go ahead.
So there's a big field directly to the east of that.
It's an Idaho.
That is roughly 2 acres or so.
I do my first.
If they wanted to expand into that in the future, they would have to buy that property first, assuming that they will be able to get that conditional.
They could come in and amend their conditional use permit, similar to what they did here tonight,
Before buying that property?
before
You can
that,
sit-
buying that property,
Alan,
and you would add a
you can just sit in
condition
the back.
in there that they'd have to
Yeah,
purchase them.
those are the
Or they
rules.
become effective if they purchase the property.
Because it just kind of seems like that's plausible. Okay, thank you. Good job.
And just for clarification for the record, Chair Davis is recusing himself from this public hearing because he is a current candidate for mayor. And in the interest of preserving his ability to sit on a matter that may come before council, if he were to be elected, he needs to recuse himself and not participate in this public hearing.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're
that,
welcome.
Keeping me from having to do all that.
So tonight, as you can tell, has been a little bit of a lot of learning curve. This is Aiden's very first presentation to a hearing body
Well done,
tonight.
Aiden.
So I think he did pretty good.
You look very comfortable.
Sean Langendorfer, our assistant city clerk, came in and clerked that portion so that Aiden could be up here because he can't be in two places at once.
Uh-huh.
Very difficult.
And Mary has graciously taken over chair because Sean Taylor is trying to finish up a project and make it here in time for the workshop. So a lot of shifting gears. Appreciate everybody's patience as we're working through this tonight.
Can I be city attorney?
You bet, I'm gonna come take your spot. As long as we're playing, you know, here.
And I don't know, is Charlotte on the go-to? Did she log back in or?
She said she'd be listening. I don't know if she could
Okay.
see it.
She was in earlier, but I did not see her.
I'm not seeing her in there at the moment. So it is kind of on. We're on the phone, I'm assuming we've called in, right? Okay, all right. And I know that it's being broadcast on YouTube, so she might be watching it there as well. So tried to give her lots of options. So, all right. All right, so tonight, this is the second public hearing. It's on the PACE Zone Map Amendment, PZE 230110. It's directly, it's on Reed Road, North Reed Road, south of West Miles and north of West Mustang. The development team and the applicant is Olson Engineering. Jeremy Trezulli is here to present on behalf of Olson, and Eric Olson is the engineer of record. And the owners are Fred, who's in the audience, and Charla, who is out there in participating through GoTo or YouTube. So she is around as well. The property has an existing zone of residential suburban. It's directly south of a recent zone map amendment, the Bassett zone map amendment that was residential suburban that was changed to single family residential. And the future land use map shows it as being single family residential. So the request is a zone map amendment from residential suburban to single family residential. The property currently has a single family residential structure and the usual accessory structures. And the lot's approximately 3/4 of an acre in size. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy. All yours.
Commissioners, Jeremy Terzulli. I am a land use specialist for a couple of different people around town. On this case, Olson Engineering, representing the Pace family. Apologize for the blandness of my presentation. I can't be as cool as Brad and JUB. We just don't have the funding that they do. So. Anyway, comic relief, right? As Donna pointed out, this is the subject property on Reed Road. You may recognize everybody except for Commissioner Johnson, who this is your first hearing?
This is my second.
Okay, that's cool. Happy to have you. The property to the north here, north being on the right orientation of this screen, is the Bassett zone map amendment that we brought before you several months ago. We did get final approval with City Council on that, so that is now R1 zoning designation. We'll be forthcoming with a 6-lot subdivision on that. Through the process, we did go up and down the neighbors on this street, that is to say Paige Bassett and I did. We met with the Paces, talked to them about what we were trying to do, because you'll see, and it's probably in your staff report, that there are only a couple residential suburban zone properties on this street. The Paces happened to be one, the property south of them was one, and the property north of Paige's was one, although that one is developed out in a non-conforming because there's 2 lots on there that are less than a half acre each. At the time, the Paces thought, you know, we support what you're trying to do. We like what you're trying to do. We don't have any opposition to it, but, you know, we're just going to kind of keep things the way they are. No big deal. And then their situation did change. And so we had to bring forth another application for zone map amendment for their property. That is the Bassett property to the north. 10275 is the Paces property. That's the subject. That is the subdivision, the current working model of it, and that actually matters in this because if approved for zone map amendment, the Paces will be requesting a 2-lot subdivision on their parcel to create a lot to the west, and they're working with Page and his family to the north to extend that hammerhead, which is a fire apparatus road, to the south to create access to that back portion because there are dimensional constraints on the Paces property that make it difficult, let's say, to gain access to the back of their property. Standards of approval for a zone map amendment, a little bit different than a conditional use permit. A and B do speak more to, those are more procedural issues and conditions that could be placed on any approval. And then again, just sort of the procedure that the commission is to follow through here. City staff did not feel that the request required any additional studies or any conditions be placed on the request. Staff also felt in our pre-development meeting that the proposal was consistent with city code and the comprehensive plan. And so for this exercise, I'm going to focus on conditions C, D, and E for approval, as A and B, like I said, are far more procedural than anything. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the area. 2023 adopted zoning map on the left, the 2040 comp plan on the right. I tried to take a screenshot that was pretty equal. You can see there might be a little bit of offset as the resolution on the future land use map is considerably worse than the zone map. The star indicates the subject property. The one thing that's hard to pick up in the zoning map is actually the unshaded areas. There's a hatching there if you look closely. That hatching represents the residential suburban zoning designation. If we look, this is the property I was talking about that's residential suburban, that is non-conforming. These lots along here are just under a half acre, maybe 4/10 of an acre. All these properties up here are less than a half acre and are still zoned residential suburban. So in essence, it's the residential suburban of the zoning map, not the future land use map, which shows everything in this area R1 or higher density, not lower density. The spot zoning in this area is actually the residential suburban, and that would be here. The guy to the south who was super nice, but said, you know what, I'm going to be here till I die. Don't need to change anything. Do what you're going to do. He was good about it. So with regard to those standards of approval, does it meet or is it in alignment with the future land use map? Clearly it is. And does it align with the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan? I don't think there's a project that's ever come before you that can align with every goal and policy. However, these were ones that I pointed out that I thought it clearly meets. I won't read them because I know you guys are intimately familiar with all of them. I'm going to zero in on number 16, that we ensure that ordinances and policies do not violate private property rights, adversely impact property values, or create unnecessary limitations on land use. The reason I'm honing in on that is the final few words, which is unnecessary limitations on land use. The Paces have roughly 3/4 of an acre. They have a daughter who is retiring out of the United States Air Force, stationed in Delaware. She wanted to come back to Kootenai County. Limitations on what she could afford. They have this excess land at the rear of their property. If it were an R1 zoned property today, which is what the future land use map says it should be, they could simply move to subdivision. Their idea is to carve off a roughly 1/4 acre lot back there, gain access through the Bassett subdivision, and sell her that buildable lot so that she can live there. They're moving into their retirement years. They thought having one of their children nearby could help keep them in their home longer than if they just had this large lot. I know that shouldn't be a slam dunk to say, all right, just give them what they want. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is this is their investment, and there are a couple of objectives that could be met through this approval, which is give their daughter a buildable lot, which she would purchase from them. That then pays off the remainder of the mortgage on their home and then keeps family nearby as they retire, which hopefully can keep them in their home a little bit longer than maybe if they didn't have a family member nearby. So that's why I'm kind of zeroing in on goal number 16 and the statement of not creating unnecessary limitations on land use. The zoning district's purpose intent. Does this request meet the zoning district's purpose and intent? Well, purpose and intent of the existing zoning is essentially the same as the purpose and intent of the requested zoning, which is single-family residential on lots in excess of 8,250 square feet. The only difference is in the residential suburban, the lot sizes are considerably larger, and the max lot coverage is slightly less. Other than that, the district's purpose and intent, they're more or less the same. Single-family homes with the option of an accessory dwelling unit. The deviation comes in minimum lot size and lot coverage, as you can see demonstrated there versus R1, there versus R1. Everything else you will notice, and this is in your packet and in the staff report, all other design criteria are identical. As far as the neighborhood context, which I know this is a new review criteria, the screenshot to the right, the star represents the Paces property. I bring this out because this again is also in the staff report, and Donna did a very thorough review of the surrounding areas, what the acreages are, what the densities were, what the range of lot sizes were. And so my bullet points are that actually the majority of the lots in the area are less than 10,000 square feet. The vast majority of the uses within a quarter-mile radius, those are single family. If approved, and I know I've said they want to just create that lot for their daughter, but I think it would be disingenuous of me not to state that at 3/4 of an acre, if expertly designed, and if Paige was willing to adjust the fire apparatus road, they technically could probably get 3 lots out of this. I think it would be tough. The rear yard setback of the existing home would come into play. The connection point would come into play. I think it would be very difficult, but by right, moving from residential suburban to R1, there could likely, I won't say likely, it's possible to get 3 lots there. But unless the Paces are the best grifters I've met yet, I think their intent is genuine to carve off a roughly quarter-acre lot on the west side to sell a buildable lot to their daughter. With that approval, a maximum of 3 peak hour trips per day, and that would be if 3 lots were created. If it were 2 lots, you'd be talking about 2 peak hour trips, and that's out of the ITE manual for trip generation for a project like this. It's actually probably going to be less, as all residents in this area technically will be retirees, even though their daughter is considerably younger and has done 20 years in the United States military. But they'll be retirees, but that is what the ITE manual would say. 3 lots would create 3 peak hour trips per day. There won't be any additional approaches off of Reed Road, so it's not going to change and add additional driveway approaches along Reed Road. Reed Road improvements, the widening of the road, the sidewalk, that will improve pedestrian safety in the area, thus improving the fact that a lot of neighbors walk up and down Reed Road. And the large parcel to the north is intended to be a 6-lot subdivision, which also offers a little bit of context as to how this neighborhood is developing out. This is sort of the summation of everything I've just stated, that no additional studies were necessary according to city staff. We've got utilities, sewer, water, Everything's available in there. They would piggyback off of the Bassett subdivision. Talked with Brandon at Hayden Lake Irrigation. There is a AC line that runs along the back of these properties that would get relocated into Reed Road. He's got some grant money for that and would participate with Page and the Paces to get that realignment of that water line. We're actually overlapping on 2 districts, but we've been actively working with Brandon because I know he wants to get that water line out of the backyards. The request for the subsequent subdivision would align with the district's purpose and intent. We're consistent with other single-family lots in the area. Obviously, is it in alignment with the future land use map is a yes or no, and yes, it is. And I've pointed out, and I know staff pointed out, several of the goals and policies that could align with the request. And so just a little sneak peek, even though this isn't a subdivision, that would be our plan if approved. And again, forgive me, our pictures aren't as fancy as Brad's with JUB, but we're not going to design a subdivision unless we can get an approval and get in the appropriate zoning designation. And with that, any questions?
So I have a question about the stub road coming into that back lot. Is that going to be similar to the one on the other side? Is that sufficient for the fire district's good with turning around in that?
Absolutely. So this is right out of their standards. They have a couple of different hammerhead designs that you can use. This T-shaped one actually would only have to go to here. See where my cursor is? To give them an appropriate turnaround up there. These radii are out of their standards. And these leg distances, if you mirror this leg distance down here, that is their standard for a hammerhead. Where'd my cursor go?
So I guess I'm asking if in this back where we're looking at the subject property here, is it, so they're good with coming into that?
So that's going to be a conversation for the Paces, the engineer, and the fire department. Will they need to provide an additional turnaround on the property? And what they're going to look at is, you've probably heard this before, is 150 feet max backup. Like, that's what they want. So as of right now, I think we're real close to that threshold, depending on where they position their house. Probably will be fine, because you'll see a fire truck pull up, bang, right here, right? And then they have 150 feet. Can they get around the house in 2 directions and meet at the back of the house, going no more than 150 feet this way, no more than 150 feet this way? And from the position of that fire truck, do they have no more than 150 feet to back up to before they can be going in the forward direction again? Does that make sense? Okay, so, and it's right there on the threshold, but a way to navigate that would be within the driveway that the Paces will have to design for the house. If Tyler says, I can't do it, you got to create turnaround on site, then we'll have to work with it within the driveway. Anyone else?
It's like we're good.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to recap staff review. So looking at the first 2 conditions of approval or standards of approval, based on the applicant's request, staff didn't believe that a zoning development agreement or additional studies would be required. With respect to standard number 3, an amendment to the zone map must be in accordance with the future land use map and the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. So single family residential as a land use type out of the comprehensive plan identifies it as a classic Hayden neighborhood with typically low densities ranging from 3 to 4 units per acre. And accessory dwelling units are permitted, but two-family dwellings are not. And then the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan are found on page 3 of your staff review. And they're also found in their entirety in the appendix of your staff reviews. And when staff goes through and looks at goals and policies, we look at both the proposed use of single-family residential as well as the existing zone of residential suburban. And so we kind of look at both of those. We don't look at one or the other. And so by looking at both of those, we came up with about 4 standards, 4 goals that could potentially be utilized in evaluating whether or not this zone map amendment should be approved. They talk about land use types, they talk about housing types, and they talk about character of the community and promoting greater choices and opportunities. Talks about developing inside the city limits prior to annexation or of adjacent areas. Talks about preserving and protecting and strengthening the vitality and stability of existing neighborhoods. Ensuring that all development can be serviced by public facilities. Again, establishing balance between jobs and housing. Coordinating the timely and efficient development of environmentally sound sewer and water and other utility infrastructure, and making sure that the development is paying for that and bearing those costs. Ensuring that the ordinance and policies don't violate private property rights or adversely impact property values or create unnecessary limitations on land use. And then promoting and encouraging the development and rehabilitation of quality housing through a variety of housing options and densities. In policies, the same logic applies. Staff came up with about 5 of them, and that's not to say that there couldn't have been others. But, this talks again about being fiscally responsible, making sure that you're developing in accordance with plans, and evaluating community-wide impacts, improving pedestrian access, bicycle and vehicular safety along those city streets, especially those that don't already have them. And then coordinating and supporting local water and irrigation districts. And as Jeremy identified, this literally does stand right on it's directly on the boundary of 2 water districts. And both of them were noticed, and Hayden Lake Irrigation District does have water lines in the rear that they're trying to get out of the backyards. So that is
Donna,
part of the conversation.
Number 8, like the bicycle and vehicular safety along the city streets. How is this going to affect Reed?
So zone map amendment wouldn't, but any future development would. So any future subdivision would require them to do frontage improvements along Reed Road.
Even if they were just building that house in the back?
It's still a
and it's
subdivision.
only access through that new road?
Yep.
They would have to add sidewalks and
Yep. Do
widen
the
the street.
improvements according to the typical section. That's
Okay.
correct. Yep. So again, a recap of that future land use map showing that sorry, I was sick last week. Showing that the whole area surrounding this piece of property is zoned single-family residential. Has a future land use map, sorry. Showing a land use of single-family residential. And then the amendment to the zone map, or in this case, has to meet the zone district's purpose and intent. So a residential suburban zone, what it is today, provides for single-family residential on larger lots with minimal agricultural uses. There isn't any agricultural uses per se on this piece of property. Per the applicant's information, it's mostly field in the back, so they're not, grazing cattle, and they're not growing agriculture purposes as its existing use today. Single-family residential, which is the proposed use, is again providing for that classic neighborhood where single-family homes on smaller lots are permitted. And accessory dwelling units are permitted, but 2-family dwellings are not. So as you saw from Mr. Chuzuli's presentation, he gave a comparison side by side with the residential suburban and the single family R1. So square footages is sometimes difficult to see the difference. So the minimum lot size in residential suburban is half an acre. And the minimum lot size in single family residential is nearly a fifth of an acre, 0.189. The only differences between these two zones is, again, the maximum lot coverage, but then the sizes of the lots are substantially different. And the side yard setback of the accessory structure, you have a wider setback on the residential suburban for the accessory structure than you do for that single family lot.
So while we have that slide up, just whether you do the math or somebody on the commission does the math. So he's saying that the lot that they want to create will be approximately a quarter of an acre. How much bigger is that than the minimum 8,250?
It's close to 10,000.
So it's close to 10,000.
Yeah.
So it's not the very small
It's bigger
lot.
than that,
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a aerial of the existing zone map showing that this lot is residential suburban, the lot directly south of it, and those two lots that aren't conforming to the north. And then the whole rest of it is a sea of single-family residential. And then the fifth standard of approval, this is on page 6 of your staff review. And that is that the amendment to the zone map and zone text shall be consistent with the neighborhood contexts. So these properties are selected by taking a 300-foot radius from the perimeter of the property in question. And these are the ones that are selected from that. And of those, the properties that are in Bridle Trail subdivision are ranging in size of about 0.18, this larger lot that kind of just skews the average. But the average of those developed parcels is about 0.23. So it's actually smaller than the quarter acre that he's proposing in the subdivision, should that get subdivided that way. The lots that are over here that are in a subdivision, this is actually a double lot. It's two lots that were put together. These are about a third of an acre apiece across the way. And then these three lots are larger lots. This one is a kind of an irregular flag lot in the back. All single-family dwellings in the area. Every lot that's out there that's developed has a single-family residence on it. So infrastructure at the time of future development, Hayden Lake Irrigation District will be the water provider. All dry utilities shall be placed underground. City sewer master plan shows the site within the H2 basin. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District will have comments on how it develops and how that turnaround happens. The streets, Breed Road will be constructed to the city's typical section, and internal streets will be built to local street standards. Stormwater shall be reviewed at the time of site plan or subdivision development. Notices were sent to 25 agencies. Panhandle Health District responded with no comments at this time. Hayden Lake Irrigation District responded regarding requirements at the time of future development. Harbs responded with no comments. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office had no concerns. And Idaho Department of Water Resources noted the lot is within the HLID boundaries. They also provided comments that said that if they were to put their own well in and not utilize Hayden Lake Irrigation District as their water purveyor, that they would have requirements at the time of the well going in the ground.
Which being the residential suburban, would they have the right to sink a well? So they could do it then?
As long as their water rights, as long as they still had a vested interest in their water rights and hadn't transitioned those to another irrigation company
Okay,
or district irrigation.
so that's a benefit also, or a perceived possible benefit.
Correct.
Okay.
So public comments received prior to this hearing in your memo that was sent out last Friday. There was one comment from P. Phelps that was in opposition of this project. And that's in your council, it's in your staff packets.
And it referred to infrastructure, but it didn't give any specifics.
Correct. So there are 5 standards of approval for a zone map amendment. The Planning and Zoning Commission can recommend approval with conditions, or denial of the zone map amendment request from residential suburban to single-family residential. So in this case, just for those in the audience as well as the commissioners, this is a recommendation to the city council. And at the completion of this public hearing, once the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a finding, then we'll create a written recommendation that will come back to you for approval, and then we'll notice to go to another public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission, with the City Council. Hence why Chair Davis took a step back. Questions for me?
Talk to me about the irrigation. So who's participating in the cost of moving that line?
Well, it wouldn't be a part of the zone map amendment that would
Oh,
require
okay.
that to occur.
Okay,
That would
I
happen at the
apologize.
time of subdivision.
Okay.
Anybody?
Doesn't seem like we have any.
Do you want me to leave the standards of approval up?
Please, thank you.
Public?
Okay, so. So now we're opening the public hearing? Okay. So we are opening our public hearing for a zone map amendment 11-1-7.
23-0110.
Thank you. Oh my- Okay. Okay, so has anyone had any ex parte communication with the applicant or the general public regarding this case?
No.
No.
Okay, no, thank you. Now I turn it over to the applicant?
The applicant presented,
Right.
staff presented, now you're waiting for the public to
Public.
comment.
Public, neutral.
Okay.
opposition.
But I'm like, where am I at then?
Hayden, can you see her script?
Yeah, I'm looking at.
Help me, help me.
I got you.
Oh, here. Okay, so where am I starting?
Fill out a form. if
Okay,
wanna
thank
make
you.
it.
Anyone? Yeah, so only one of them wishes to speak, so I didn't know how to handle.
Let me look at those while
you read
the script.
Okay, thank you. Anyone who wants to offer comments regarding the subject case, please submit a completed form located on the table by the entrance doors. The forms must have your name, address, date, and whether you want to testify in support of, opposed to, or are neutral. Anyone planning to speak must do so at the podium so your remarks can be heard in the recording system. All questions and comments will be directed to the commission, not the applicant. The applicant will have the opportunity to answer questions and offer a rebuttal after all public testimony is completed. All speakers will need to state their name and address for the record before they begin speaking. I will call the first of supporting the application, then those uncommitted, and finally those opposed to the application.
You don't have any public commenters for this.
Okay, thank you. And it appears that we have no public commenters for this case.
You might want to check online and just verify there isn't anybody online.
Is there anyone online that wishes to speak for, against, or neutral? Okay, thank you. This is a night of firsts.
Everybody has to have a first.
I guess so, huh?
There is nobody.
It may be noted that there is no one online. So we close the hearing. So the hearing's now closed. No more questions or comments will be allowed from the public. Do we wish to proceed or schedule deliberations for another date?
Does the applicant wish to rebut
Oh,
anything?
does the
There's
applicant-
been no public comment, so there's really nothing to rebut, but.
But do you wish to rebut?
I believe my rebuttal would be to make note that there is nobody in opposition of this project. And if I could offer any clarification from previous questions that weren't answered.
I think the commission's good. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, so commission, do we wish to proceed, to schedule deliberation for another date?
Proceed.
Proceed.
Okay? So do we have any
Does anybody have any
Comments?
concerns about this?
or
Can I
concerns?
ask a question to Fonda?
Please.
So Fonda, in this, if we wanted to put a condition on this, that the quarter acre and the half acre scenario that we've been shown be the condition, and that it's not 3 lots, how would we do that?
I would carefully weigh whether or not you're unreasonably limiting a private property owner's ability to use their land and
So I feel
clearly
like the-
evaluate the zone map
I feel like
amendment
the
request.
presentation left it open that there's wiggle room to change things. In Mr. Trezulli's own words, he was saying he sounded to me like he was saying it would be difficult to add a third one, but they might try to.
I didn't hear him say they might try to. I think what he said is it's possible if it were amended to, the zone was amended, that they might be able to fit in 3 lots should they change their mind.
So my question is there a way that we can,
Well, first of all, you're not the decision maker. It's a recommendation to
I get
council,
it,
so
I get it, but we can recommend a condition, right?
that is up to you.
But I mean, that's what we have, we can say yes, we can say no. We can recommend yes, recommend no, or we can recommend with a condition, right?
Yes.
And so are we allowed to recommend with that condition?
It's not appropriate for me to say whether or not you can amend or that you can recommend with that particular condition. You have to weigh that. I can tell you what you need to weigh in making that decision
Okay,
is,
so
are
let me-
you inappropriately limiting a private property owner's property rights by doing
Okay,
that?
so if we're talking about the future land use map and it were done, then yeah, you could do that, but it's not that. And so we're giving a special exception and in regard to the special exception.
I don't know what the special exception is. They've
Well,
asked.
they're asking for permission to
They're-
deviate from
No, they're asking for a zone map amendment that is consistent with your future land use map.
Agreed, but the future land use map isn't in effect today.
The future land use map is in effect today.
No, I mean, the zoning they have today isn't the zoning that the future land use map shows will be in the future.
The zoning they're asking for is to make their zone consistent with which the future land use map says it could build out to.
Okay,
I just have to tell you what you have to weigh. I'm not the one that's going to tell you what your motion should be or should not.
I'm not asking you to do
Okay.
that. I'm asking if it's appropriate, if we are allowed to put a condition on it or not.
You absolutely can make a recommendation to council that includes a condition.
Okay,
That's not what you asked me. You asked me, can we have it be this
Forgive my-
particular condition? That's not my job.
but I'm just saying, the way that it was put forth, if we could, I'm just asking, can we say we're recommending approval if it's the way that it was put forth, but not if it's deviated to be something different later?
They're only asking for a zone map amendment with,
And it sounds like the only reason why he was throwing out the idea that it would be difficult is if they chose to keep the pre-existing home on that property. So if that property were rezoned to single-family home, R1, they could, in theory, tear down that house and relocate it. But with the way that it is currently, it makes it difficult for them to have 3 lots on it. That's the way that I read it, based on setbacks and things like that.
Okay.
I mean, it has less.
That's not what I heard.
It has less to do with you thinking about if it's two properties or three properties. It has more to do with whether we think that he has the right or not to make it single family residential or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're not approving a subdivision, only a zone map amendment.
Right.
We're only looking to recommend. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of information presented that has nothing to do with the standards. And I'm trying to just look at the standards.
I understand that.
And so the standards as they exist today with its current zoning seems to be inconsistent with 3 lots, but possibly with 2 in my mind.
Oh, I see what you're
I don't know
saying.
I don't know how to word it the right way, but I know what I heard and what I thought that meant. So that's why I'm trying to clarify it.
Okay.
If you look at the size of the property as being 8250, and this one is 3/4 of an acre, 8250 times 3 is still less than 3/4 of an acre. Just looking at the
So
math and the facts of
the
that.
other lots that were going around,
Mm-hmm.
they were like 10,000 plus.
No, we saw some that were less.
The 4 lots that are going
Nope,
around? or the-
nope.
Sorry, the public hearing is closed.
So,
If you have any
like
questions.
these ones right here.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
These ones right here.
Yeah.
Right through here are less.
I thought those were the 10,000.
So some of them are, but not all of them.
Okay.
It's the one on the end that skews it.
That one on the top left.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's bigger.
Yeah, I saw that one.
That one's really
Yeah.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the others are the classic Hayden single-family subdivision lot size, where it varies, but it's within that.
I think what Keith is trying to ask is, can a condition be put on that would restrict them in the future from coming forward with a 3-lot subdivision? And my recommendation is I would not advise that condition.
Right.
Based on the private property.
And that's about
Right.
the
Right.
property, square footage wise of what they have right now, roughly.
So does
That would
anybody
mean
else
all
have
three
any
of them could be over
concerns or
10,000.
comments? And I don't want to cut you
No, I'm.
short.
but
I
I'm-
just didn't know if anybody else had any comments that wanted to help that out or anything.
No.
Okay. Then,
How strong do you feel about putting conditions on this?
I just want to know what our options are. I feel like, when we get something brought before us and the picture is painted a certain way, but there's flexibility and fudge factor in it, and it gets put in a way that, meets the standards, but then once you change and give the permission or the recommendation that's desired, then now it's easier to change it and make it into more. So like increase the density, for instance. And so I'm just saying, if the density that was proposed is, the condition, then that's a lot more palatable than if they're just get you one step closer and one step closer and one step closer. If they just nickel and dime you until pretty quick it's this big thing.
I hear you.
I don't like that.
I think we have to make the decision if we are choosing to make this R1, then we have to be assuming that there's the possibility that there could be 3 properties on there. Is all I'm getting at.
No, I agree. That's, but 3 properties isn't appropriate with the current zoning, right?
It is, or with
Well-
the With the,
No, it's
you're
not.
right, with the
Neither,
suburban, you're right.
yeah, neither one of, well, that back lot wouldn't be because it's, this residential suburban is half acre. So, but we
I'm
need
just
to look in
saying-
the context of,
With the residential suburban, the way that it is now, they can't do anything else with it.
Right.
And so they're asking to do something with it, and they're saying, we want to do something with adding one lot. But the way that the lot is drawn, it leaves it open, so there could be a second lot. So we make our recommendation based on the picture being this little extra lot. And then once they've got that, then they go and they ask for more later. Oh, well, now we want another lot, and so on and so forth. And I'm just saying,
No.
if you just say ahead of time,
Just for clarification, they're not asking for lots in this application.
get it.
Your job is to evaluate whether or not making a change from residential suburban to R1 meets your standards of approval. That's it.
yeah, and that's, I think that's where the focus needs to be, is with what they're saying is, they're not adding another, things that wouldn't change. They're not adding another approach to Reed Road. They're improving Reed Road because they're
I get that.
asking for that zoning. And the approach is already coming in from that other property. We need to look at, is this appropriate for the context of the whole area? That right now, even if we didn't look at the future land use map, but we looked at just the context of what's there right now, it's surrounded by single family. So they're asking us if we will let them be the same as what is surrounding them, which is R1. And we have to, that is all that's being asked of us tonight, not the configuration.
Gotcha.
And I understand where you're coming from. I know,
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
I
You
know
can
exactly, but I also know
Pretend
where
like
we're
I'm not
at.
saying it or I'm not acknowledging. I'm telling you, people are pissed. And I'm just saying, okay. Proceed.
Do you have any comments?
Well, I understand our body is judges and we don't represent the people. That's the job of the council. I get that. But I'm just saying, I'm a citizen here too.
I understand. Do you have any comments? Okay. Do you have any further comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay,
You're ready to entertain a motion?
I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve,
Recommend.
or
approval.
recommend approval to the city council for PZE-23-0110. As is.
Okay. A second?
I'll second.
A second? Okay. And
Any further discussion?
any further discussion? Everyone feel that it meets the standards of approval? No further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Keith Gibson,
Begrudgingly, yes.
Ben Prickett,
Yes.
Joel Johnson,
Aye.
Brandon Bemis,
Yes.
Mary Howard.
Yes. Okay, motion passes.
Begrudgingly.
So we will need to take a 10-15 minute break to reset for the.
Happily,
Perfect.
yes.
Piss me off when they do that.
Okay, we're resuming the planning and zoning. We're going to move now into our workshop to discuss the comprehensive plan goals and policies.
Cool. So, if you've been following along with the city council meetings and the workshops, there's been great discussion regarding results from the community-wide city survey that has led them to believe that maybe the comp plan could use some tweaks. So as a result of that conversation with the city council, Fonda and I worked up a list of how that process works and what those meetings may look like. And so this is kind of a live memo that kind of addresses the process of a city-initiated comp plan BAP amendment, so comp plan amendment, dating it. Right. And I'm actually going to pass these out to Mark, who's in the audience, because he has requested copies of them. Anyway, it's just faster, to be honest. So the process, as you can tell, is identified out of Idaho state statutes. And it had a kind of a first meeting at the last meeting when Brett Boyer, city administrator, gave the Planning and Zoning Commission a review of what the survey results were. And then following that, brought us here tonight where we're having a workshop with the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding possible changes to the goals and policies, maybe even the actions, and possibly the body of the comprehensive plan document. And we're also going to review the proposed amendments by the city council. And then you're going to get to kind of digest all of that kind of information that I'm presenting tonight. And then, as Alan said, we asked that you kind of look at the goals and policies before you came. But once you look at what the city council is kind of looking at, I think it's going to be more advantageous for you to take all of that information and go home with your comprehensive plans and look at what they're proposing, look at what you may think that you'd like to see changed as well, and then email those into us the week before our next, like November 6th or 7th, because we'll have our next workshop, the second meeting in November. And we'll consolidate your planning and zoning proposed changes to the comp plan with those that the city council came up with, and then workshop those kind of all together so you can see what those look like as a cohesive document. And then we'll have a joint workshop with the city council. So it's a little bit of a kind of a moving, lots of workshop work in the process.
And Donna, you have slides for us?
I do.
I would like us to discuss our thoughts on the goals and the policies ahead of seeing what commission came up with, or I'm sorry, the city council. I respect city council's tenure and wisdom, but I don't want our discussions, I want our discussions to be organic and centered around what we see from planning and zoning.
Okay.
And then obviously we can compare and contrast to see how close we are with each other instead of just kind of, being led around.
Then I would let you guys, and then we can go into city council, because the slides that I have are directly related to what city council has proposed for changes.
Which is why I asked. Okay. So is this just turning into a free-for-all then, or what? And I don't mean that literally, obviously. There's no structure or format. We're just going to discuss things.
So, correct. So in the email that went out for tonight's meeting, I reminded the Planning and Zoning Commission to review the goals and policies in context with the survey. Don't know if you have done that or not done that. So I guess that would be a question for the commission.
All right, so I guess from the macro, what I'm gonna say is the macro level or the 10,000 foot view is we've got a comp plan. It's the plan that anticipates what the city needs 20 years, up to 20 years from now. Our comp plan is updated every 5 years. We're, I think, on year 3 of our current comp plan. For the record, our comp plan followed an entire year of aggressive marketing and advertising by the city to get the inputs of the citizens. In my opinion, not a fact, following the release of the comp plan, there were some citizens affected by some of the new information, including new zones. And as a result of that, we, in my opinion, again, have a new wave of now concerned citizens. And as a result of that, I believe both planning and zoning and city council have adjusted their perspectives on some kinds of building. So I see this exercise today as a step towards either prematurely modifying or perhaps providing inputs to the next version of the comprehensive plan. Does that make sense? Would anybody like to start with their thoughts on, let's just maybe, and again, I'm not going to drive the format here. I'd rather us it be collegial. We can just go over the goals, or we can go over the goals and bounce back and forth between the goals and the supporting policies. What are your thoughts there?
I think you've got notes on each thing,
No.
No.
I've read these. I've got thoughts in my head.
right?
I've seen this enough that,
Okay.
or we could just go down the goals one at a time and
Let's
talk
do that.
about them.
Let's do
Would
that.
that be easier?
Yep.
Sure.
Keep everybody on the same page.
All right. So our first goal is to promote and actively
It's not in here.
I'm sorry.
This does not have everything in here that Aiden said.
Okay.
The goals and
Oh,
policies is at the
Back
very
and
back.
back. I got it.
All right. Very good.
I got it.
All right, our first goal is to promote and actively participate in intergovernmental coordination levels, efforts at the regional and the local level. I'll start out with my comment, and maybe this will set the tone, or again, you guys can go in a different direction, obviously. I found as I read a number of these goals, I'm not sure where our rubber meets the road work is being done to support these, and it's not so much a criticism, I'm just observing. And it could be that because we're on planning and zoning and our scope is narrow, there are goals that we don't necessarily see. I know in P&Z, we're not necessarily doing goal 1. And I know when I look at, for example, buildings out on the prairie, I wonder what coordination is being done to, for example, affect traffic coming through Hayden from Post Falls, if Post Falls is building a whole bunch of construction at the border. So I guess with number 1 for me, as P&Z, I don't have any educated thoughts on this because again, it seems to be out of our swim lane, but I'm definitely open to what you guys have to say.
Still on goal 1, you mean?
Yes. Go
I
on.
feel like that one was one that was kind of something that really doesn't affect our planning and zoning commission.
Any thoughts?
I read it.
Not particularly.
Joel or Keith?
I agree.
Good?
Yep.
All right.
I feel like our staff handles that intergovernmental
Yeah.
coordination before it gets to us. And if there's any issues, they would let us know.
Well, that is true. Actually, as we think about it, there is intergovernmental coordination when we look at Hayden Fire District when they have to approve
Well,
things.
and
So
like on this last one, it was 2 different water districts. So
Yep.
they really handle that.
that's a good point. I was just thinking city to city, but there's a lot more to government than just cities. Good call, Mary.
I got you back there.
All right, comprehensive plan is a living document, serves as a guide for development, et cetera, et cetera. I really don't have any comments on that. Anybody?
Well, I think we've proven that as we've gone through this last year. You know, we added in coordination with the city council, we added the neighborhood context
Yep.
to it. So I feel like we've proven that it is a living document, that
Let's
it's not
update our
set in
standards of
stone.
approval.
Yeah.
Yep, that is important. The plan is just a plan. It's not a,
It's not a stone tablet.
it's not a stone tablet. Yes, it's flexible. It changes. I think our comp plan is made with excellent intention. And sometimes when you spring something out, you find out that there was something you didn't quite see and you adjust it and you make it better. But yeah, because it's not written in stone, there's no reason to overreact and assume that we're stuck with whatever words are on there.
Well, but it is so important that we do have a plan.
Yes,
You can see cities that grew without a plan because no one could vision that the area, the city could possibly be bigger than it is or anything that it isn't right that moment.
Yep.
And that becomes a problem for cities when they don't look forward.
and to that, in the last 20 years, I can't remember a day where I didn't have electricity or water or sewer, and that's on the city. So that's good. Any other comments on 2? All right, we're supposed to maintain an attractive balance of mix of land uses, densities, and housing types, ensuring the future character of the community, promoting greater choices and opportunities. Somebody else take the lead on this one?
Can I do that one?
Sure.
So I feel like in the same way that the public comes in here and they comment on a lot of things that have that's outside our purview. I like seeing the deer in the lot next door. I don't think they should build on it because that'll take my view away. It's like, that's not your, buy it, don't build on it. But you can't tell the guy that owns it, he can't develop it. That's his, his property, and he can do with it whatever is legally allowed for him to do with it. Just like they make comments like that, I feel like I like the workshops because it teaches us what we can and what we can't do, what our function is. I feel like I was in about a year before I figured out that we're more like judges than representative of constituents.
Sometimes.
The council is elected by the constituents and they represent the constituents, but we really are in a judgment position where we look at, this is what the standards are.
Right.
Does it meet it or does it not? And so,
But Keith, we do help shape those standards, and we are accountable.
I
And we are
love
accountable
this particular workshop.
Yeah, and
I
we're-
wish this particular workshop would have happened
a long time
when I
ago.
first started. You know what I mean? And I know you can't repeat all the workshops every time a new guy comes. I get it, but I'm just saying, like I've asked for like a little piece of paper for anybody who wants to make a comment to read this first and then make. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Kind of be nice if there's like a little piece of paper for us, so that this is what your purpose is. You know what I mean? And so with this particular one, the reason that I wanted to address it is because I was a long time in before I ever heard that there were certain requirements by the state for us to have certain different types of a certain amount of apartments, a certain amount of single family, a certain amount of blah, 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 blah. And I didn't realize that if we didn't meet those state requirements, that we were leaving ourselves open for making Fonda a lot of money, defending us
There you
because,
go, Fonda.
A developer could sue, right, because we're not following the
because
law.
we didn't know what we could and couldn't do. Right? And so, anyway, it says maintain an attractive and balanced mix of land uses, densities. Densities is the main one that I'm looking at here. But I don't know what the state's requirements are. I don't know. Do we have enough apartments? Do we not have enough apartments? How do we know that?
That's a great question, Fonda. Does the state go, into what level of detail does the state go as far as requiring the city to provide various types of housing.
So I'm assuming you're talking about Idaho code,
Mhm.
not the state.
The state, our state.
Oh, okay.
State code requires you to have a mix of housing types and densities.
And that's as,
Doesn't say
that's
you
as
have
vague
to
as it
have-
is?
Yes, the law, you have to avoid it in discrimination claims.
So I know we're not gonna go to law school to figure out what that means.
I
Can
would
you,
need to go to planning school to figure out what all that means.
no, but what I'm saying is when you say that, you mean this much, but we only hear this much. So can you dumb it down
I
for
don't
us?
know what you're asking me.
How do we, as planning and zoning commissioners, know if we have enough of one thing or not enough of one thing? Like,
So that's part of the reason that when you did the comprehensive plan previously, you hire a consultant to help with those parts and pieces as well.
Uh-huh.
Because that's all they specialize in, is if you get unbalanced, if you do this, you're gonna be unbalanced here. If you do that, you're gonna be unbalanced here. If you change these land use types, it's going to affect your transportation master plan. I mean,
so like in the thing that we had,
multiple pieces. I don't know what you're wanting me to give you a formula of you need to have
No, no, no.
20% this, 30%
No, I'm not.
that. I can't do that.
I'm just saying, how do we know when we're in compliance and when we're not in compliance? I don't think any of us as a
You
citizen,
get sued and the court tells you you're not.
I understand that. What I'm saying is we're trying as citizens, not wanting to, okay, Steve Griffiths came in and Steve Griffiths did a great job of getting us out of some really expensive legal fees.
Yes.
And I think that he saw that we were getting ourselves back into a position where we were gonna get some legal fees, and he was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I felt like he was frustrated that we were, by our own ignorance, not necessarily us, but the whole group, putting the city at risk. And I don't want to put the city at risk.
Certain.
So what I'm saying is how can we know if we're in compliance or not? So for instance, tonight we were talking about whether one of the, can I talk about earlier?
Not really.
Okay, so previously, there have been multiple examples where people have come in and presented to us and said, we can put in this many increased density and put in this many extra, residences. And knowing the streets that those were on and the frustration that I personally have with the traffic on those streets because of four-way stop signs and things like that and really long lines for a lot of the day. And then they say something like, well, we could put in this many, but we're only asking for, this 20 less than that. And you're like, you can't handle 15 more and you're asking for 50. You know what I mean? And so, but then if we're a judge, part of what being a judge is using your common sense where the law leaves off, where the written part of the law leaves off.
So Keith, I don't want to cut you off. I think we're drifting away from the goal. The answer to your question is, we just do our best. There's no state standard that says this many, this many. We just have to follow the law, follow our standards of approval, and be able to stand by that if the city is sued.
Also, the city staff is already vetting the project for us before it gets to us.
Right. So they're not going to hopefully set us up for failure.
I think what Keith's circling around though is if we have a goal that says mixed housing types and mixed densities, where do we know where the line is on how much density and how many different housing types?
Yep.
Like understanding your.
Absolutely, because they could be coming in and they could be asking for something that's completely acceptable. And you have to say yes, even though you're screaming inside no, because that road already sucks.
So I think there might be just a little mix up between, and I could be wrong, so just bear with me. I'm trying to drill down on your question. We've talked about this before, there are subdivisions that will come in as a matter of right because your code allows for it. So they meet the lot sizes, they meet the circulation requirements, they meet all of the setbacks, and it is what we call a matter of right application. So
But we don't ever talk to those guys, right?
You don't see those guys.
Yeah, we only talk to the ones who are
You
asking
see them on subdivisions.
for extra stuff.
No, you see them on subdivisions. Yeah, you see them on major subdivisions. They come in and are looking for, to divide 5 acres down into however many single-family residents.
But I thought the only people that we saw were people that were asking for something outside of the normal,
A
otherwise they
deviation
just
from code or something. No, you
rubber
see
stamp.
matter of right applications.
I think the more, probably a better question to ask is, when we look at number 3 is, I'm not one for making even more zones, but I think maybe a better question is, do we have the right kind of zones to support our balanced mix of land use?
And even the definitions of the existing zones, can we change the definitions of the existing zones? Where they might have made sense, when it was first done, but clearly it's,
So zoning is in your code, not your comprehensive. Your comprehensive plan, yes, drives your zoning code. So we'll be really clear. This speaks to what your zoning code should be. So you start here, identify what your zones are going to be. Are you talking about, rather than looking at just this goal, but actually going in and amending zone definitions to then change code?
specifically, I think that the public is outraged by density, and our hands are tied at P&Z where we have to say yes, knowing it's going to tick off the public.
We don't ever have to say yes, just, so that's a matter of public record.
But I don't want to get the city sued, is what I'm saying.
Understand.
And I don't want to trample on anybody's rights either. I don't like my rights trampled on. I certainly don't want to trample on anybody else's. But the plan, like we said, it's not a stone tablet, right? And so it can be steered. It can be, we need to make a little course correction here. I mean, that's what the whole purpose of this workshop is, right?
And maybe it's a good question based
I'm
on what,
spending too much time on this and I don't want to. I'm just saying, this is what this workshop's for. And I don't feel like I understand when I'm hazarding the city and when I'm not.
This discussion is not a liability discussion at all.
Okay,
At all. This is,
cool.
is this comprehensive plan reflective of the vision for the city of Hayden? And the reality of that is it reflective of the majority of people's vision? Because you're just not gonna make 100% of the people happy.
Nope, you're not. But you can make,
But the
Most of them
exercise
happy.
is to say, one, we have these goals, but the second part of that is, are our policies accurately speaking to the goals? Are our policies helping us formulate the policy we need to accomplish the goals? That's probably more critical than even the goals. Like, is it a goal to have a variety of housing types? Well, yes. If you don't say you're gonna have a variety of housing types, you will be out of compliance with state code, right? You have to have a variety of housing types. So the goal is fine, but then you have to get to the policy that says, this is how we're going to have a variety of housing types. And then that speaks to your code.
okay, so hypothetically, in the instance that somebody comes in and says, right now, my property is zoned one way. I'd like you to zone it a different way. It'll be in the same zone then as what the comprehensive plan,
As what the future land. use
future
plan
land
says.
use, yep. But by doing that, it raises density, when raising density right now is a hot button with the current election that's coming up. And I know we're not elected, but I'm.
but Keith, the future land use map is only one consideration. We have to consider the entire comprehensive plan, just I think one of the things that most of the public doesn't understand, the future land use map, I'm just gonna say, I think is worded poorly because people literally read it's the future land use. It's not. It's what the city needs to identify resources to support potential development in that section of the city. It's not to say that today it's a single-family home, now it's mixed use, oh my gosh, we're gonna knock everything down and put up apartments and businesses. It's saying that is a potential allowed use in that area, therefore we need to plan X size sewer, X size water delivery, et cetera. As I hit on earlier, that's how the city ensures we always have lights on and water flowing. So the flum is not just we get to do it because it's on the flum. The flum is just one little piece of the pie when we consider a request. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, let me just make it as basic as possible and I'll shut up. If they are zoned A and they're asking to be zoned B.
Yep.
Zone B is what's on the flum, future land use map.
Which means? No. Which means?
No,
My
stay in
question.
here, stay in here. Just ask the question.
So if they're zoned A and they're asking to be zoned B and zone B is consistent with what's on the future land use map,
Okay.
do we have to say yes?
No.
Or can we say no?
You have a variety of standards of approval to evaluate, only one of which is what's on the future land use map.
Right.
Just
That's why you get multiple standards of approval.
Sir, what's your name? Would you mind keeping it to a dull? Like, you're speaking out of turn way too often. There's only 2 other people in this room, and I'm constantly hearing you talk. Please show some respect to the order of a public meeting, okay? If you want to talk, you wait your turn, just like everybody else does at a public meeting, and you come up and you can talk there.
Well, there's no time to go.
Yeah, so you know what? There's no time for you to talk at all.
Well, I could call
Right
you
now.
up later if you have something to say, that's fine. If it's constructive and meaningful participation.
Okay.
I want the citizens, I want our community to have a voice in what our work looks like. But I'll also caveat that by saying sometimes at P&Z, folks come up to the podium and provide less than useful input based on misinformation or opinions or, what have you. So again, let's go get down a ways, and if you've got some stuff to add, I'll be glad to call you up to the podium.
And I just want to say, I really like his questioning here, but I also am hoping that we can get through this a
So
little quicker.
Yep.
I wonder if we look at the goal and then the policies with it.
Yeah, I thought of that, but some of them have 8, 7 goals.
I understand that, but I think that
You'd be hammering the same policies over and over and over.
I understand that, but I think that we could
You think I would?
do that in a constructive manner because it says to maintain an attractive and balanced mix of land uses, densities, and housing types, ensuring the future character of the community,
Right.
promote greater choices and opportunities. So then I can just take us, and each of us can take a quick scan of each of those and go, oh, okay, well, this is the one I think this policy might be the one that needs to be tweaked.
All right, so let's look 4, 7, 11, 12, and 17 and see how it supports goal 3. Fonda, for you though, I am kind of curious, I'm going to ask you an opinion question. To Keith's comments, we have this goal here, but at the very least, a very vocal minority of the population doesn't want that to be the goal. Let's just say hypothetically, 2,000 people in Hayden just want single-family homes and that's it. How does a city or how do planning and zoning commissioners or how, when somebody's building a comprehensive plan, do you balance the law with a part of the population?
I'm going to read you out of the Local Land Use Planning Act under 67-6508, the chapter you're required to have on population. So your chapter on population has to speak to a population analysis of past, present, and future trends in population, including such characteristics as total population, age, sex, and income. I read that to you because the decisions you make on these goals are driven out of data. You decide what data is going to be appropriate, And then that data feeds, you've been stale for 10 years, or you've grown by 2%, or you've grown by 13%. It's that population data that then's going to drive what you're looking at for your future land uses and zoning needs. So you're required to have a variety of, but maybe your population stales out and you really don't have a need for any sort of high-density apartment complexes, for
Sure.
instance. And so then your comprehensive plan at that time as a living document would make an adjustment.
Right.
But your planning is driven by the data that you have. None of us are creating that data. That's why we use consultants. That's why there are adopted methods for appropriate data to be utilized. It's a data-driven decision-making process. And so that's why the planning portion of this has to speak to the 30,000-foot view of observing what's happening.
Okay.
So more data than boisterous minority.
Well, I think it's unfair to say what you're looking at right now is from a boisterous minority. There was a survey conducted at the
Right.
request that had great feedback for
Right.
you.
I
There's some
appreciate that.
good feedback in that survey that is from a great cross-section of the town, of the city, that's saying, this is what we want. You do have to weigh it against other actual data points. But the comprehensive plan is developed out of more than just opinion, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that.
All right, so let's bounce back to the goal 3. Let's look at policies 4, 7, 11, 12, and 17, and then figure out if you guys want to have a discussion. And here's the thing, I don't think there's no gun to our head. We don't have to get through all of the goals tonight. So if there's a place where somebody says uncle and there's a consensus there, we'll adjourn and we can have another workshop. That's fine with me.
On your comment about goal 3, I will also read you the housing chapter requirement. Says an analysis of housing conditions and needs, plans for improvement of housing standards, and plans for provision of safe, sanitary, and adequate housing, including the provision for low-cost conventional housing, the siting of manufactured housing and mobile homes in subdivisions and parks, and on individual lots which are sufficient to maintain a competitive market for each of those housing types and to address the needs of the community. That's a local land use, that is code requirement. Your housing chapter has to address how you're going to have safe and sanitary housing and how you are going to have housing that meets the needs of every section of the community. So I think you would be hard pressed to answer your question to be able to say that you can, with a straight face, articulate that single-family residential housing meets the needs of every cross-section of your socioeconomic demographics of your city.
Oh, I agree 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
So anybody have any comments on the policies then supporting goal 3?
So the only one that I see, and I almost wonder if it doesn't belong with goal 3, and that is when it talks about the commercial nodes. So maybe I looked at the wrong ones.
That's 17.
Yeah. Which,
Well, 12
Or
talks
number
about
11.
nodes.
Number
Right.
11.
12, actually, and so does 11.
11.
okay.
So which policy are you talking about?
So, well, I think that the retail nodes are an important part of a diverse community, but people really struggle with those. Like,
Right.
they really struggle with those. So how do we address either the goal or the policy that makes that,
I think what we're looking at is, does the policy support the goal? I don't necessarily think that we're looking is the policy. I mean, I think we can certainly discuss whether the policy is healthy for the community or appropriate or desired.
mm-hmm,
But I think it's more just, does the policy support the goal?
okay.
Unless somebody sees it differently.
Then it probably does.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is this workshop to show us how to change the policy or to show us how to change the goal?
Both. Or neither.
Because some
You
of
guys gonna
them,
drive Keith crazy?
well, no, they're totally right, because some of them
Right.
need to be addressed and others don't.
Right.
And some of them, it's the goal that needs to be adjusted, and others, it's the policy that needs to be
So
adjusted.
the way we talked about this at city council was, and the exercise we asked them to do is take your survey results, because that's your new data subset,
Mm-hmm,
and look at those survey results in comparison to your goals and policies. And are there goals and policies that don't meet that new data set?
You're opening up. a can
So
of worms.
I'm gonna throw a grenade out here. Would everybody feel comfortable, now that they maybe have a better idea of what we wanted to get done today, go back, prepare, and hit this at a next meeting? Or do you guys want to continue trying slogging through this? Because I'm kind of getting the feeling that we're just realizing the pool we stepped in to swim, and we might not award the right trunks, you know?
I'd love if we had this as an entire meeting to itself,
Yeah,
instead of having a meeting
yeah, why have
with a
two
bunch of
hearings
work,
and then this
burn your
after?
brain out, have some wonderful sandwiches, and then come back out here with an,
I agree with that.
Okay. Everybody's at our consensus?
Yep.
All right, so because I said I would, sir, do you have anything you want to add to what we're talking about here tonight?
You talking with me?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
before he,
Go ahead.
yes, Donna.
in the workshop materials that we put together for this, that are council's comments, as well as Art's comments to council, and then Art's comments that he has provided to planning and zoning. We don't have those yet, because they kind of came in that order. And in order for them to make sense, you kind of need them in that order. So if Art provides you comments now, you're going to be getting it entirely out of context. And
Art, would you be comfortable coming back, and when we're ready to do this as a workshop, talk to us then?
I got so much time on my hands, I could do anything.
I appreciate that.
No, I mean, I'm not trying, to not interrupt, okay? And if I did interrupt, then I apologize for that. Because I'm a professional land use planner. I've been there and back. I've done this thing from scratch for a comprehensive plan, for Eagle, Meridian, and Cuna. I did it. I was the man, okay, for almost 77 to 83, okay.
So you're willing to come back then?
Yeah, and all I want to share is not demands, but saying ideas and suggestions how the plan can be made better.
Okay, all right.
That's all, and I'm not trying to be a SOB.
No,
I
it's,
don't want to get into that.
No.
I'm saying is I'm trying to create dialogue
yep,
that we work with each other and we don't start arguing.
sure.
There's no reason to argue. I say it's a matter of trying to come to grips with this thing. And between 1977 and 83, I wore myself out, literally, to figure out what the Land Use Planning Act has done. And it was a we the people document, Eagle, Meridian, and Cuna. It wasn't an Art Collins special. No way.
Okay, so, all right, well, thank you for that. So let's move on to,
And to follow up with what Donna said, now that you know what Art had to say, Art has provided some very detailed written commentary. It
Okay.
just won't make sense to you
right,
until you work your
the
way through.
appropriate time.
Yeah.
Yep, all right, so we have our homework to do, planning and zoning. Donna, do we have I'm just going on memory here. The next thing should be if we've got any business.
Reports. Yeah,
Reports.
there really isn't anything moving forward to city council. If you want to have another workshop on this, as far as your current meeting schedule goes, it won't be until the second meeting in November. You have a full docket on the first meeting in November.
Well, does anybody have any desire to do a meeting outside of our normal, including the city? Do we have bandwidth for that or not?
All depends on whether funds is available.
I'm not here.
You're not here?
I'm looking, hold on.
Well, you're kind of important, so we should have you here.
You're always important.
Art doesn't think so, but we'll change his mind before we're done here. My
Rhonda,
calendar's not working.
don't
Oh,
poke the bear and don't poke the art.
I'm teasing Art. November 20th, I am out of town, and that is your second meeting. So we could do a special meeting maybe.
Between now and.
Yeah, I was
the
thinking
1st
like,
of
what about the
November?
week of the 30th or the week of the 23rd or of the, this month or?
Yeah, we can look at a time.
We're
I mean,
thinking
the
exclusive
27th.
to the
Are you
workshop,
thinking
but
before the meeting on the 6th of November? Or are you
Yes.
thinking-
Well, that would be ideal.
Oh,
Yeah.
way earlier.
Well, hi, Mr. Dupree. See you want to comment?
Just an idea and maybe some considerations. We're coming up on an election,
Yep.
okay? And once that happens, who knows, okay? By this schedule, it looks like planning and the council were supposed to have a co-workshop, if I'm not mistaken, the end of the 20, I heard the 22nd of November, maybe? Is that correct, or what is the time?
No,
No.
it was like the first meeting in December-ish.
Okay, so right around the end of, so the more we push this out, the more we're pushing the entire schedule out. Next thing you know, we're gonna be into January, who knows when, and the like, and we may have to turn around and start all over, who knows?
Well, I don't think we're gonna get any real business done by the 7th, if that's a concern. I'm gonna tell you, for me, it's not a concern, but if that is a concern, we're not gonna solve the goals and policies by November 7th. And so whoever is the mayor, whoever city council looks like, is gonna have to just keep the ball rolling to the best of their ability. And whoever's left on planning and zoning.
So Fonda's got availability next Monday, the 23rd.
All right.
Okay.
How are you guys with the 23rd?
I can't make that night.
Cannot?
No.
Brandon?
I think I can.
Keith? Sure.
I could probably do it.
Joel, I don't want to cut you out. When are you available?
Just about every other night.
Well, do we want to roll on a Tuesday or is that
I'm
allowed?
What
leaving
about
town.
Wednesday, the 25th?
I'm
Wednesday?
leaving town the 24th and I get back on the 30th.
Oh, no, that doesn't work.
Well, unless we go the 31st.
Really?
That's
Oh, never
Halloween.
mind. Sorry.
Okay, what time are you thinking on
Spooky.
what time are you thinking on the 23rd?
At 5?
Okay. I might have to leave for a few minutes and then come back,
What do you got? I mean,
taking my daughter somewhere.
All right.
Or do you want us to start later? You want us to start at 6?
No, 5 would be fine. I just have to run home.
Can
and get my
anybody,
daughter and
can
take her
we
somewhere.
support starting earlier, like say at 4 o'clock?
I could.
I can.
That's fine.
Could probably,
I could possibly do that.
Let's do the 23rd at 4.
Okay.
And now we know what, what we know we want to try to do.
No, that's better.
And I apologize. I know you guys wanted to do slides and stuff, but I really would
No,
like
it's all
to
right.
not be tainted by other stuff. And I want our commissioners to understand all this. Okay, is there anything else? That was the last thing on the agenda, right?
It was.
So I think that our marching orders are to compare the goals and policies
Yep.
with the
Supporting policies.
results of the
Oh, yes,
survey
sorry, yes.
and look at those together.
Yes.
Mhm.
I feel like I need to give a little more explanation.
Please do.
That
Help
maybe
us.
hasn't been given. So just big picture view. I said it earlier, your comprehensive plan and the data that has gone into those population projections drives your master plans, transportation master plan, parks master plan, sewer master plan. Those master plans provide the information necessary to create your for council to create their capital improvement projects. And those capital improvement projects are what feed your need for your impact fees. So this is all married together. You change one drastically and you change it all the way down to your ability to collect your impact fees. And I'm also speaking to this for Art too, because I know he's got some concerns regarding impact fees and how they're not addressed or not in the comp plan. So just know that by code, period, this is the starting point that drives all of your ability to have projects done and have projects paid for ultimately by your developers. And that's
And the one
important.
thing I didn't hear you say that I just want to make sure we all understand and make sure I understand correctly is the comp plan feeds the master plans.
The comp plan directly feeds, your master plans are a direct
Result of the comp
derivative
plan.
of your comprehensive plan.
So that's what's important. Okay, any other comments? We're adjourned.